thing to see is how Jesus reveals himself to be Lord of all. And second, how we as the church are in relationship with this Jesus, the Son of God, the Lord of all. Jesus revealed himself as Lord of all by walking on the tumultuous, stormy waves while all of the disciples were in the boat. In my imagination, I can't help to think about the opening sequence of Gilligan's Island, where the SS Minnow is rocked on the oceans, and Gilligan is pratfalling onto the skipper as the skipper is trying to keep the SS Minnow going straight. I see the boat there like that. And yet when Jesus appears walking on the water, and then when Jesus ultimately gets into the boat, everything calms down. Jesus is walking on the water as if it was nothing, as if there was still some kind of calm in Jesus despite the storm. And he brings that calm into the boat when he comes aboard. In the spiritual and religious imaginations of the disciples, they saw God who created the heavens and the earth as one who brought order to chaos, one who breathed over the waters of disorder and chaos to bring some kind of order, some kind of calm in which all of creation could be in relationship with this God who created heaven and earth. So Jesus, having this effect on the ocean, calls to mind and actually reveals Jesus as the Son of God, who has the same effect as God who is creator of heaven and earth. But linked to the creation God of heaven and earth is the salvation and peace that this same God brings to all the world through Jesus. And this is our relationship with the Jesus, the Son of God. For you see, today we exist as the living body of the risen Christ. We are the church. And one of the great images that there is of the church is like that of a boat. Sometimes it can be a boat that's sort of like a luxury liner. Sometimes it's a boat that is an explorer vessel. And sometimes it's a boat that goes around trying to keep the peace. It's perhaps all of these things in one, let alone a hospital boat that goes to places of disaster. The church exists in this kind of boat, and all of the disciples are its crew, and all of its crew have different parts to play. Now, the boat of the church travels through history, and its course is set for the fullness of God's kingdom, what we pray for in the Lord's Prayer every Sunday. And we're heading toward that goal, that destination. And as we head toward that destination, we are gathering and inviting others onto the boat. But the boat is never on calm waters. If the boat ever found itself on calm seas, the boat is in trouble. The boat is more likely to sink in calm waters than it is in stormy waves. So the church always aims for the storm, to be in the middle of the storm, to be jostled about. This is because in the storm, Christ stands. In the storm, the risen Christ can be discovered. In the storm, the church discovers Jesus saying to them, "Do not be afraid. Have peace. Come out of the boat and help me." Peter, among all of the other disciples, had this sense. And Peter takes this step. He says, "Lord, if you want me to help, just say the word." And Jesus says, come on. And Peter takes these initial steps out of the boat. And he's discovering the same reality that Jesus had, that although there is a storm, there is also a calmness, a peace, an order in which we can exist so that we can function, that we can bring peace and order and salvation to the rest of the world. And Peter is like, wow! But Peter gets distracted with all of the other storms, all of the bad news, all of the scandals, all of the wars, all of the betrayal, all of the different viewpoints for different things, and all of that yak. It's distracting. And so Peter began to sink. Not because he had poor faith, but because he took his eye off of Jesus. And when he reasserts his concentration, when he reasserts his focus on the risen Lord standing in the storm, he is able to rise up again. Interesting, rising up, like resurrecting. My brothers and sisters, we are like this boat as a church, always in stormy waters, always keeping focus on Jesus Christ, who will always guide us, who will always lift us up, who will always protect us, so that we can advance the mission that is the church, helping the world to see the love of Christ in the midst of suffering. I always wonder in my imagination with this gospel, what about the rest of the disciples? They just seem to hang around in the boat. They're waiting to see what happens to Peter. Are they saying, "Peter, don't rock the boat. It's rocking enough"? Or it's like, well, we're going to stay safe here in the boat as it is, even though it's stormy. Let's just see how Peter fares. My brothers and sisters, that's no way for a church to be a church. I think Jesus is trying to tell us that we're all in the boat together. And with Jesus Christ in the boat with us, we can weather any storm as church. So however the church exists, whatever level, whether it be on the global level, facing all of the global issues, whether it be on more national levels, facing all of the national issues, whether it be on a more local level, like the archdiocese or the parish, facing those intermediate issues, or even as a church existing as a family or a household, dealing with the immediate issues of the day, where meaning and identity are constantly being challenged. That staying focused on Christ, being a faithful crew, will enable us not so much to be successful, but will enable us to bear some kind of fruit that advances the peace, that advances the salvation, to invite others onto the boat. But that's only possible if we leave the boat like Peter did. Can't expect people getting on the boat if there's just people on the boat. It looks a little too crowded. It looks a little too stuffy. It isn't all that inviting. Yes, getting out of the boat, stepping into the storm, can be frightening, scary, full of distractions. But Christ is there. Christ will call us. Christ will lift us up. Christ always encourages us not to be afraid. Is this the church that you imagine? Is this the church that you see yourself a part of, with the living Christ in our midst? This is the church as we see ourselves, scripturally, doctrinally. This is the church, a people of faith, sitting in a boat in the stormy weather, about to go forth into the storm with Jesus to bring others back onto the boat. Jesus, my brothers and sisters, is always inviting us to stand up, get out of the boat, and walk.